time now to speak to the government this morning. I'm joined, as you can see, by Gareth Davies, the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury. He's here with me now. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming in. Some news just in the last few minutes, really. The decision by Theresa May to stand down at the next election. What's your reaction to that?
Well, how appropriate on International Women's Day, the country's second female Prime Minister is standing down after a pretty good innings, 27 years of service, not just to her constituents, but I think as one of our longest-serving Home Secretaries and then obviously Prime Minister as well. I'm personally sad to see her go. I think it's very good when former leaders stay in the House of Commons and contribute to debates, and she's certainly brought a lot to debates since she stood down, and so I'm very sad personally, but wish her well, and I think she's justified in moving on after 27 years.
I think that makes it close to 60 Tory MPs. That's around a sixth of the party choosing to stand down at the next election. It sounds like there are a lot of Tory MPs that have made their minds up about the party's prospects in the next election.
I think there's nearly 50 Labour MPs as well, just to be completely balanced about this. And this is what happens when you approach a new election and completely reasonable for people to decide that it's time to go, particularly when they've been in the House of Commons for a long time. And each one has made their own decision for personal reasons, and I respect every single person's decision to do so.
OK, another bit of news for you to respond to, if you will. The US has announced in the last few hours that it's going to construct a port in Gaza to try to get humanitarian aid in. Do you welcome that? And is there any UK involvement in this?
So I don't have details of any UK involvement, but I will say this, that it is a complete priority for not just the Foreign Secretary, but the Prime Minister to focus on the conflict in the Middle East. We continue to press for a humanitarian pause, as we've said consistently. We've got to get the hostages out and get aid in. And so we're working very hard to ensure that that can happen, not just with Israel, but with the United States and our other allies too.
Are you frustrated with the amount of aid that's getting in and how Israel's handling it?
Well, anybody watching the scenes in Gaza can't help but notice how horrific it is. And so we've been very clear that we need to get aid into Gaza. We've tripled the amount of aid that we're providing to the conflict. And we've been also very clear that we need as many crossings open as possible. And we will continue to press for that to happen.
I want to talk to you about defence spending, because the Public Accounts Committee has produced a report today saying that there's a financial black hole worth billions and billions of pounds in defence spending, and they say that the government currently lacks a credible plan to fund the Ministry of Defence. So what have you got to say to that?
Well, we've got record funding going into our defence. It's vital that we do that. The war in Ukraine showed how important it is that we have a resilient and ready armed forces, because you never know where the next conflict is around the corner. We've got, I think, over £50 billion being spent this year on defence. It was uplifted by £11 billion at the last spring budget, and so money is going into our defences. But the nature of conflict has also changed in that we need technology and we need a different way of tackling conflict and being ready to do so.
But the Public Accounts Committee says that the money just simply isn't there. They say that there is no credible plan to deliver fully funded military capability as desired by you, by the government, and they say that leaves us in an alarming place.
Well, I don't recognise that. As I say, we've got record funding going into defence. It was uplifted £11 billion last year. And we have a spending review that will take place next year where defence spending will be reviewed again. But I don't accept that. I think there is a significant amount of funding going into defence. And as I say, the nature of conflict has changed as such that it requires spending in a different way.
But they say there's a shortfall of billions compared to what you say that you want to do. They say that money just isn't there, and there's been no new money announced in the budget at a time of huge global tension.
Well, we are one of the first, I think one of the only countries to be meeting our NATO target of 2%. We're the only political party, by the way, that has an ambition to get to 2.5% of GDP on defence spending when it's responsible to do so. But as I say, there is billions of pounds going into our defence budget, not least with an uplift last year of 11 billion into it.
So when will you hit that target of 2.5% of GDP?
Well, it's a long-term ambition that we want to make sure that we can do so responsibly and in a sustained way. But as I say, we are the only ones that have committed to doing that.
And yet, if you don't have a plan, it means that people are left in the dark. And this plays into what the Institute for Fiscal Studies said yesterday. He said that you and Labour are in a conspiracy of silence over tax and spending choices. They're pointing out that the next government's going to inherit some really tough spending choices. Are you being honest about your ambitions, how much they're going to cost and where the money's going to be coming from?
Yes, we've been very clear that we want spending to increase over the next Parliament by 1% in real terms every single year. The OBR have been also very clear in their report alongside the budget that overall total spending will go up by £86 billion, which would be a record amount for total government spending. When it comes to departmental spending, that is a process that takes place as part of a spending review, as they know well, and that is right that that takes place after the election when a government has a mandate from the British people to decide those kind of budgets.
But doesn't the public need to know more about what those choices are and have more clarity about your ambitions? For example, national insurance. Let's see if we can get a bit of clarity on that as well. Two different ministers have given Sky News a rather different take on your ambitions for national insurance. One of your Treasury colleagues has said that you're going to phase it out completely. Another, Mel Stride, Work and Pensions Secretary, has said that it's his understanding that it's the government's aspiration to bring it and taxes more generally down over time. So which is it? What is the government's plan?
So the starting point is that we think there's a fundamental unfairness that if you work in a job, you pay two types of tax. You pay income tax and you pay national insurance contributions. And so what we want to do and what we've demonstrated in the last two fiscal events is that we want to get national insurance contributions down to the extent that we remove the unfairness over time. So the long-term ambition, it may take several parliaments, but the long-term ambition is to remove that unfairness, absolutely. And if you just look at our actions in the last 6 months, we've already reduced it by some I think 30%, a third of it has gone down as a result of Jeremy Hunt's last two fiscal events. So that is our plan, that is an ambition.
Do you want to merge national insurance and income tax?
Well, we keep all these things under review, but we want to remove the unfairness of having two taxes for those in work. That's why we've, by the way, cut tax for those in work. Some 29 million people will benefit as a result of the tax cut of the spring budget, just as they did in the autumn statement. As I say, it's been reduced by 30%. We want to keep going with that.
OK, Gareth Davies, I'm just going to pick you up on something you said earlier. I'm being told that the number of Labour MPs who are standing down at the next election is more like 17 rather than close to 50. But we'll go away and have a look at that.
OK, maybe have a look.
OK,
yeah.
But Gareth Davies, we appreciate your time. Thanks very much indeed.